Welcome, welcome once again to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis by Raven, Friday night TV and movie talk. It is November 18th, 2022, and unfortunately, we have a topic of discussion that we really weren't ready for, but recently, the late, great Kevin Conroy, best known as the voice actor of Batman for the past 30 years, passed away from cancer, I believe it was stomach cancer. And so we're here to reminisce about his career, not only as Batman, but other works that he contributed to. And with me, as most times, my co host, John Norris.
Good evening, everyone.
Well, like I said, it's not the best, it's not a subject we really wanted to talk about, per se.
No,
Most people do not know.
certainly weren't prepared to talk about, really.
No, we weren't. It was not known that he was ill per se. I mean, I think in the last 18 months, you could tell if you saw enough public photos of him that he was losing weight from the treatments and stuff. So, I mean, you knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what. And we certainly didn't know that he was going to die from it. So, it's sad that we didn't get to say a proper goodbye per se. But, everybody wants to deal with their illnesses and if they know they're going to die from it. I don't know if he did or not, but, everyone wants to deal with it in their own way, and we have to respect that. So, I guess we just get started, right?
I guess. Unfortunately, I never got to meet him because I've never been to any major conventions or anything like that. Did you ever see him at a convention or anything?
No, I never got the chance to meet him. But I was not, unlike you, because for those of you who don't know, John is into voice acting and theater and stuff like that. So that's his forte, and that would have been one of his Grail meetings, I'm sure. Would have been meeting him, or really anybody from BTAS, really. I mean, whether it be Gray Delisle or Mark Hamill or any of them would be something on your Grail list, I'm sure. There are a few questions that people wanted to ask ahead of time, so let me go ahead and do that, I guess, first. Questions and comments from recent episodes. Let's see. First question or statement. Warren Montgomery via Facebook says, I think the camera should be on your left side since you're right-handed during live draw episodes. Yes, it should. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't have a long enough cord to do that. That's why normally when I do live draws, the camera is over my left shoulder sitting on the station next to me instead of where it's at when I was doing it on the table, and I have the board in my lap. But hopefully before the end of the year, I'll have a new camera and tripod to do it so I can have two cameras to work with. Next question was from Pop Culture Avenger. He's not sure he'll make it tonight because it was his birthday today, and his son may be taking him out for dinner. I want to wish you a happy birthday, Pop. And
Happy birthday, PCA.
And hope you have a good day and evening, whether you're here with us or not. Now, a question for you, John. Did Conroy inspire you to want to become a voice actor, performer yourself, or create any interest in theater for you?
Not really. I mean, I've been a musician all my life, pretty much. So, and of course, if you've ever heard Kevin Conroy sing, he has like an amazing voice. But no, he really didn't. And in fact, the only reason I got into theater in the first place was because in 1998 I was working at a movie theater, which is actually where I saw Batman Mask of the Phantasm. and I was working at the movie theater, and a coworker of mine did theater, and he happened to know somebody who needed a musical director. And so one day he asked me, and until the day he asked me, would I be interested, I had never even thought of doing theater for whatever reason. Like, theater just wasn't a big part of my life until the day somebody asked me if I was interested in doing it.
And that's interesting, because in a lot of ways that parallels Kevin Conroy's life, because when he was a young man, he had a very dysfunctional family. We'll get more into it. But a teacher noticed that he was actually quite into certain things, and decided to, instead of the school, who thought he was just a troublemaker and a pain in the butt, we're going to put him all in remedial classes and ruin his life, basically. This one teacher saw something in him and said, come to theater class, come to all the advanced placement classes, and actually went to the principal and stood behind this kid, the guy, and said, no, there's actually more to him than this, and we can make something of him. And that really changed his life around right there. So because someone took notice of you and took notice of him, you got to go on the path you each went on. North Free says, evening all, don't know anything about Kevin other than Batman. We'll listen and learn. We hope we can teach you some stuff. And when did John get a nickname?
Figaro was my nickname in college. I got my bachelor's degree from Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. And my freshman year, I pledged Beta Theta Pi fraternity. And one of our first pledge tasks was we had a lock-in, and we had to come up with nicknames for each other. It was kind of an exercise in getting to know our fellow pledge brothers. And so Figaro was chosen for me because of my love of Disney as Figaro the cat from Pinocchio, and my love of music, Mozart's Marriage of Figaro and Rossini's Barber of Seville, which is where Figaro actually comes from. So there you go.
Yep. Okay. Our next question. We have one more to go, which I guess is to both of us in a way. Are you concerned about recent events with Twitter and whether or not the platform will even exist in the near future? Apparently, I guess Elon Musk has bought Twitter and he's fired everybody and whatever.
Or he gave the ultimatum, either work extra long hours or leave or something.
Yeah.
To that effect, which to me just seems ridiculous.
Yeah. Whatever his hangups are. I don't know. Do you even use Twitter?
Hardly.
Yeah, same here. The only thing I do with Twitter is post links to when the show is on. So if Twitter goes away, that's just one less platform I have to worry about hitting a link to. That's about all I got to say about it personally. So those are our questions for the day. And if you have questions, Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com, subject QTR Q&A. So that's the end of the questions. Let's get on with the show. Obviously, Pop is in the room. He is saying hello. Happy birthday to you again, Pop. We just mentioned that. So we're glad you're here. Hope you're having a good birthday. All right. Kevin Conroy, born 1930, 1955, passed away a week ago, November 10th, just shy of his 67th birthday. Best known as the voice actor who defined Batman over the past 30 years, Kevin Conroy came from a broken household in New York. His father was a very, very ill alcoholic, and he basically had a very abusive childhood from that situation. He would have to leave home at 16 to finish high school, as it was too dangerous to be around his father. His mother would also leave the area and go live with her own relatives, while his father sank deeper into alcoholic depression and even suicidal attempts. He was academically and socially a mess until, like I mentioned, a teacher realized his potential, and instead of allowing the school to push him into remedial classes, instead put him in advanced classes and challenged him, which led to a love of learning, literature, and ultimately theater. Graduating high school, he moved to New York City in 1973, where he earned a full scholarship to attend the Juilliard School drama division, studying under classical producer and actor John Houseman, probably best known for The Paper Chase, but as far as an actor himself, but he's much, much more than just that. Conroy would become roommates for a time with Robin Williams. A second, I had to put someone in the block again.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I know they're back. I tried to block the person, and it's not, I don't know. I blocked some of it. I don't know. Anyway, bots are a pain. Anyway, there again, he like I said, he became roommates for a time with Robin Williams, and also studied with Kelsey Grammer and Christopher Reeve, who he also almost became roommates with, but Chris was kind of from a rich, affluent background comparatively, and he couldn't afford his share of the rent in the place that Reeve was offering. I think it was something like $800 a month he had to pay.
Something like that.
And in 1973, that was way extravagant for him. But we thought that was kind of interesting, because if only they made the Batman movies with Kevin Conroy in live action in the late 70s, early 80s, opposite Christopher Reeve's Superman. Think about that.
That would have been something.
That was something that came to my mind immediately when I read that or heard about that. Conroy would then go start working out in theater, joining Houseman's acting company in productions such as Hamlet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, and the national tour of Ira Levin's Death Trap, which, ironically enough, Christopher Reeve, who was slightly older than Kevin, would receive the honor of playing the part of young playwright Clifford Anderson in the 1982 film. Why he didn't get it's interesting. They didn't even consider him for the role, Conroy for the role, even though he played it not just great, but Ira Levin actually came to see him perform and basically wanted to know how in the world he did what he did. He was just gobsmacked. And the reason why they were so gobsmacked about the performance was because the actor that he was playing opposite of in Death Trap, Ben something, was his name?
Brian Bedford.
Brian Bedford, thank you.
Who incidentally was the voice of Disney's Robin Hood.
Yes, we'll get into that in a moment. But they actually don't really like each other, and they were ticking each other off on purpose on stage.
That's a terrific story.
Yes, Conroy actually talks about this, and we'll talk about where you can learn a little bit more about him at the end of the show. But anyway, after the New York theater scene, Conroy moved out west to try to get into the film and TV scene, where he would get recurring roles on soap opera series such as Another World and Search for Tomorrow. And he was featured in supporting roles as Ted Kennedy in the 1983 miniseries Kennedy. He would move on from daytime soaps to primetime soap opera drama hit series Dynasty in 1985. But as his father began to succumb to his demons, Conroy found himself taking the burdens as a caregiver to one of his older brothers who had mental illness and had medical care needs after his father's passing. This curbed his career as he had to go back to New York to be closer to his brother, and opportunities for work diminished. As someone, myself, who has had to sacrifice as a family caregiver, I feel for him, and I totally related to that. part of his discussion in the videos that we were looking at before this. But Conroy managed to get some more theatrical work and small cameo appearances here and there on television until 1987, where he appeared as main cast member Captain Lloyd Hamilton on the short-lived ABC cop drama O'Hara, starring Pat Morita in a title role, and as recurring role Captain Rusty Wallace in the CBS war drama Tour of Duty. It was in the latter role that I, personally, first remember seeing it. It was a smaller role of a guy who sends the main cast out on missions and doesn't do a whole lot per se. I mean, he's not in a lot of the actions. He's usually on the base when the guys come back from missions and talking to them and interacting that way. And that was even to Conroy's own admittance in interviews. But he used that role to go speak to veterans when he was not on set, particularly that of Vietnam War veterans, since Tour of Duty was about Vietnam. And his experiences meeting veterans gave him some new insights to life and his purpose in giving back to society. And that's something he also goes into in the interview with Michael Rosenbaum that we'll share with you at the end of the show. We do recommend that. Again, it's on Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You podcast. And again, we'll give you the link to that interview at the end of the show. So anyway, Conroy was a fairly seasoned and theatrical and live-action performer by the time the seminal role in Batman was offered to him. But certain circumstances had to align. It just so happened that Conroy was in California shooting a live-action pilot for a short-lived series called Rachel Gunn RN when the BTAS casting director, Andrea Romano, called Conroy's agent and was explaining how difficult it was to find the right fit for Batman. At that point, they had screened somewhere around 200 to 300 different actors and couldn't find someone to play the role. Conroy's agent recommended that they give him a chance. Conroy was not interested at first because he thought it was going to be more like the Adam West kooky, silly Batman. But a meeting with Paul Dini and subsequent conversations of what it was going to actually be changed his mind, and he tried out for it, and he got the role, of course. And the rest, as they say, is history. But had the TV series he had already signed on for, Rachel Gunn, not been canceled within half a season, he would not have been allowed to take the role because there had been a conflict of interest between contracts and networks. Because at the time, Batman was on Fox and Rachel Gunn was on ABC. And the contract he had with ABC would have left him restricted to that company. So we are very grateful that Rachel Gunn was a flop.
Yeah.
How fortuitous for everyone that Conroy's luck with getting roles for short periods of time on shows that either led him to small recurring parts or series cancellation favored him in this circumstance. Now, obviously, his role as Batman was pretty much defining one of a generation, not just for him, but for the character of Batman, as Adam West was in the 1960s. But as such, it can be very difficult to really appreciate the rest of Kevin Conroy's career. But if we may indulge you real quick, we suggest that you check out the Tour of Duty series, not only for his smaller role, but just on the whole. That is a much overlooked landmark series. And I also recommend the live-action Batman role he plays in Batwoman, where he plays an evil Batman who had killed Superman in this timeline and is also going to kill Supergirl in the episode Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. That is first season, episode 9 or episode 11. It is such a departure from the voice role that it's really quite interesting to see that. And it made me believe that audiences unfamiliar with the live-action DCU work or are not fans of the Belanti-verse, as it's also somewhat affectionately called, will find that performance quite engaging and worth your time. I also think Conroy should have been Bruce Wayne for the DC HBO Max series Titans. I don't know why he wasn't. Nothing against Ian Glenn, who plays the Bruce Wayne in the Titans series. But if we're never going to see the character in the suit anyway, and we don't, that I recall, Conroy would have been a better casting, in my opinion. Just because the voice, and he just would have been so perfect for it, you know. It's sort of like whenever they cast anybody else in the voice role, like Jason O'Mara or Diedrich Bader, it doesn't quite feel right, does it, John?
No.
Yeah, it's something else.
Really kind of jarring too, you know.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, the world's a little less bright with Conroy, without Conroy in it. But he did bless us with an amazing spirit that inspired millions of fans and fellow performers. When he passed away, we saw a huge outcry from most of his fellow cast members. I don't know anybody who had one negative thing to say about this guy when he passed. And when that happens, you know you got someone who kind of lived on the side of the angels in a way, which is really shocking when you find out just how rough his childhood was, and the abuse he endured, and the forgiveness he gave his father, and just all the things there. I mean, like I said, Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, the interview he does with him. I mean, Michael's sitting there trying not to cry.
Yeah.
During the show, because he's so moved by what's being said. So it was something else. But let's see, what would we recommend for things here? Well, like I said, I recommend Tour Duty, the complete series, the Batwoman season 1 DVD, to get that one episode of him for Crisis on Infinite Earths. I guess I don't know if he's in the Supergirl Part 1 or not, but he's definitely in that one. Of course, John mentioned Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I'll let John speak a bit more about that.
Well, is that was really my entryway into Batman the Animated Series. Is for some reason, and I really am not sure why, I was a late comer to the animated Batman and the DC animated universe. Although I quickly came to much prefer it to the DC live action films. But like I said, I was working around 92, 93, when the movie first came out. I was actually working at a movie theater, and we played Batman Mask of the Phantasm. So I figured, you know, since I could see it for free, why not? And it really surprised me in a great way. Which led me to watching episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and you you asked pretty much like everybody in the voiceover or animation industry will point to Batman the Animated Series as a truly game-changing series. Like, animation was one thing, and then Batman came along and just completely changed the game. It's a series you could really tell they put a lot of care and time and money into it, and interestingly, is they actually got quite a few people who were not known for doing voiceover acting before.
That's correct. Actually, this was Conroy's first effort in voice acting. Yep. But there's another reason why he took this part. Megan Mullally was in that other TV series, the Rachel Gunn RN, and she had done voiceover work prior to that role. And when Kevin was offered it, like I said, he was kind of hesitant at first, and she also helped convince him to take the chance. So thank Megan Mullally as well, who later would be on some of the DCAU roles. I forget what role she played, but I know she was in some of the either in the Batman or Superman animated series.
And you mentioned Andrea Romano, the voice director, who is like, again, you ask any voice actor who's worked with her, and they will tell you that like she's among the best, and she had a knack for finding people who had never voiceover before, and like Kevin Conroy, Will Friedle, when he did Batman Beyond, that was his first voiceover role. And this a lot of actors credit her as for bringing them into the voice acting fold in the first place. And now Kevin Conroy, Will Friedle, they're more known for their voice acting stuff than they are for their on camera stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, I mean, in a lot of ways, Kevin's known more for his theater work. Not, like I said, the late 70s, early 80s stuff that we talked about, but even when he was doing Batman, he wasn't getting a lot of live action roles. He wanted live action roles, but they wouldn't give it to him. So he would do a lot of minor, short run series on Broadway when they weren't taping Batman. He was nominated for 2. What are they? What's the theater one? The theater.
Tony Awards?
Yeah, Tony. And on the short list, I don't think he made the finals, though. And that was partly because even though he was in a foot in both worlds and not really part of either, in a way, is how he's getting treated. And I think that's why I think he's so sorely overlooked in that respect. But, obviously, Mask of Phantasm introduced you to it, but is that still one of your favorite storylines?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I just rewatched it last night, and I think it still holds up.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay. Alrighty then. We also recommend, of course, select episodes of Batman animated series. Heart of Ice, which was an Emmy award-winning episode.
Yep.
That is the origin of Mr. Freeze and Nora and everything there. It was really well done. Appointment in Crime Alley. That was a really good episode. That is not just because he was taking care of saying goodbye to his parents. Batman is late to a shootout, and Gordon gets injured. I think that's the episode. I'll check real quick again, make sure I have that one right. No, that's the Ronald Daggett one. Okay. Ronald Daggett, who is a city planner, attempts to demolish Crime Alley. And he has to rescue people from fires and stuff like that and stop the destruction of the alley. Okay, that's that episode. Of course, Two-Face Part 1 and 2. Perchance to Dream is the episode where Mad Hatter has him thinking his parents are alive and that he's not Batman. That was quite an interesting episode.
Mm-hmm.
The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne is Hugo Strange finding out his identity and stuff like that, which is based off the storyline from the Detective Comics from the 70s. Beware the Gray Ghost, of course, has Adam West as the Gray Ghost, and Batman has to team up with the Gray Ghost to stop the guy who's using old Gray Ghost memorabilia to commit crimes. Almost Got Him is the episode where various Batman villains are sitting around playing cards, talking about how the one time they almost killed Batman, and Batman's among them in disguise. It's quite an amusing episode. The Laughing Fish, which of course is based on the Batman Detective comic story by Steve Englehart and Marshall Rogers. And why is this not going? Okay. Blind as a Bat, which is the episode where an explosion temporarily blinds him, and he has to use a special helmet designed by Wayne Tech that gives him infrared and sonar kind of capabilities to try and stop the Penguin, who has stolen a Wayne Tech militarized helicopter with all kinds of weaponry on it. Mudslide is a Clayface storyline where Clayface is losing his ability to keep his composition together. Whatever the process was that made him into Clayface is deteriorating, and his body's falling apart and creating different clones of himself and stuff. And he has to commit robberies to try and get money for an experimental procedure to try and save his life. And Batman stops that and tries to offer him help through his own sources, but of course Clayface declines. And then Harlequinade, which is Harley Quinn joining Batman and Robin to stop Joker, who has a bomb who's going to blow up Gotham. Is there any other episodes that you can think of?
Not off the top of my head, I can't.
North 3 says, Kevin opposite Mark Hamill as a Joker were always my favorite episodes. Yeah, I mean, Mark will tell you that he wouldn't have been half as good as the Joker as he was without Kevin. Yeah, and vice versa. They really played well off of each other. Mm-hmm. I just tended to want to go with more diverse range of stories. And pick the ones that story-wise I just remembered fairly well. Because I haven't watched any of this stuff in ages. Unfortunately, I don't have the DVD sets. I think you have it all on DVD, don't you?
No, I have Batman Beyond all on DVD, but not Batman the Animated Series. I just have Mask of the Phantasm and Sub-Zero, which is also a good thing to watch too.
Yeah. Okay, well there you go. There's another one that he recommends, a Sub-Zero. And of course Batman Beyond, Kevin Conroy plays the voice of Batman in that as well.
It's cool that he got to play the character as an older version. It's not very often that somebody gets to voice a role long enough to be able to age the character, and he did. And of course he was brilliant. It really was Batman Beyond where I really became a fan.
Oh, that's interesting, because I was not interested in Batman Beyond. I watched like the first 3 episodes and lost interest really quick for some reason.
Well, to me, I think the reason I was, Johnny come lately with Batman the Animated Series was I kind of felt like it's Batman. We've seen Batman before. Of course, now they did something new with Batman here, but when Batman Beyond came along, like to me, it felt like a breath of fresh air. Like
Mhm.
they were doing something new, and I really responded to that.
Interesting. Of course, you are a little bit younger than me, so
Yes.
I think part of the reason that um, you were what 1792.
Uh, yes.
Okay, I was 20, so I was in college and doing. I went to see Mask of the Phantasm in the theater on a $1 late night show. um, it came out in December, and we were in Michigan, so it was like snowing out on top of it. So I had to go trudging in the snow to get to the theater to go see this film. It was funny because there was like maybe 16 people in the theater to see this film at the time. So it was like,
Yeah.
because people didn't go to see animated feature films to speak up back then.
Unless they were Disney.
Not even the Disney ones that much. They weren't going to them for some reason. At least not where I lived. And it was really surprising because people were out of there, like, I didn't know they could do a serious Batman like that because they hadn't watched the TV series. Like you had said, you didn't really watch the TV series. So I was familiar with the TV series, but I didn't watch it on a regular basis because it was always on when I was in class. So it's like, if I didn't have a class, I could catch it, but if I had class, I would miss it. So I wouldn't become really a aficionado of it until it was in reruns and on DVD and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I don't have that stuff on DVD anymore. So, but tell us more about Batman Beyond and why that matters to you, and his performance in that.
Again, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I loved. I mean, as you can see, I'm wearing a Batman Beyond T-shirt, I love the design of Batman Beyond. And again, it felt to me like they were doing some just when you thought they couldn't do anything new with Batman, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought it was really well done. And I think by this point I was starting to get more interested in the voices. And I thought, Will Friedle did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Kevin Conroy did a great job. And I also love the music, and that's another thing Batman, the animated series had going for it was they had these wonderful, like fully orchestrated music,
Orchestral,
which never happened in an animated series before.
And, it happened, but not in an American serialized form before.
Right. And of course, then in Batman Beyond, the same composers went in a new direction. They went more techno, which worked just as well. And I don't normally listen to techno music, but I have the soundtrack for Batman Beyond. And then, of course,
people probably don't remember this, but the first soundtrack to this show was an overdub of the Batman Beyond soundtrack opening theme with Chris Benoit's entrance music from the WWE that he mashed together for me. So it tells you how much of a influence Shirley Walker and the people on that show for that were.
Yeah, and then this was also the early days of my reading comics at the time too, and I loved the show so much that I picked up the comics that were based on the show,
Mhm.
which is where I saw Craig Rousseau's work for the first time.
Okay.
He's now one of my favorite artists.
Right. North Free says Batman animated series and X-Men were the best comic cartoons ever, and they both had the perfect voice actors for the parts they played. Batman animated series, I agree with. X-Men, I completely disagree with. I hate that series. But that's just me, I guess, because I know I'm in the minority on that one. I hated the theme music to that show. I didn't like any of the animation. Voice acting didn't really do anything for me. I actually liked the animation that was done for Pride of the X-Men much better. Now, the voice acting on the X-Men cartoon was better than the Pride of the X-Men cartoon because they were using the same old Marvel Productions actors that were on G.I. Joe, and it's like, can't you get anybody else? And I think that's one of the geniuses of Andrea Romano with Batman. Instead of going to the tried and true, she went elsewhere looking. But I would say best comic cartoons ever. You got to put the Fleischer Superman above X-Men by a long shot for the era, especially. In fact, Batman animated series owes so much to the Fleischer cartoons. I don't know if there would be a Batman animated series without the Fleischer Superman. So,
there might not be.
I would have to say that Fleischer Superman comic cartoon's best for that, which we talked about in the past, of course. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it then. Again, highly recommend that you check out the Tour of Duty series, and like Norris says, recommend that the infamous Batgirl, not Batgirl, Batwoman. But yeah, just for the one episode, just to see him in the suit, live action. And it's not even really the suit because in the storyline, Superman broke Batman's back instead of Bane, and he has to wear an exoskeleton, which is what that scene was, where you saw him in the photo with the skeleton on. That's the exoskeleton that keeps him functional, basically, and that's why he killed Superman in that episode, and was going to kill Supergirl as well. So it's just interesting because it was such a controversial portrayal because they were expecting the Batman of the cartoon, and he goes in this completely dark, evil direction, and you're like, mind blown. But that's why I think it's such an important and engaging role that people should watch, because you get to see where his range of things were. And if you happen to be able to find any footage of his Death Trap performance from the stage, I would recommend that as well.
In fact, I will say, we've mentioned Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You episode. Highly recommend checking that out. It is a very frank and revealing discussion with Kevin, and he tells a story about doing Death Trap on stage with Brian Bedford, and which I think he said was the only time his father ever saw him on stage, and the only reason his father went was because he wanted to meet Brian Bedford. And like I said, Brian had been the voice of Robin Hood, and he had done some films, but and I've heard this before, his forte really was the stage. It was said,
daringly simple, amazing.
His performances in Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest were legendary. So Brian Bedford had a reputation of being a wonderful stage actor, but he could also be very difficult. And you have to hear the story Kevin tells about doing Death Trap on stage with Brian, but Kevin's dad met Brian backstage, and Brian summoned Kevin to his dressing room, and he said, I just met your father. I could tell there was some tension there. And he's like, yeah. And it's like, and Brian said this to Kevin, and he said, when your father dies, it will be too late to do anything to try and mend the relationship. And if that happens, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. So basically he said, do, whatever you can to help mend the relationship while your father is still alive. And Kevin did. And he was able to kind of mend his relationship with his dad. And Kevin even admits in the interview that there were times when he was doing Batman when he thought of his parents. And when I was rewatching Mask of the Phantasm, there are some scenes, where he's either looking at the picture of his parents on the wall or he's at their gravesite, and it's like he's pleading with them. Like he says, I need things to be different. Like my grief doesn't hurt so much now. And, I didn't count on being happy. And when he admitted in that interview, when he told the story of his dad, it's like, I could totally see how he might have been thinking of his parents.
Yeah, drawing from that experience. Yeah. Definitely. This is the video we're talking about. Inside of You, Kevin Conroy. There's the link to that. Make sure you check that out. It's certainly worth your time. Like you say, he talks a lot about the Brian Bedford incident. There was, like I said, they were basically ignoring each other's performances and being dicks to each other on camera or on stage, and everybody could tell that was what was going on. And it got to the point where they literally went at each other's throats physically, hands on. It wasn't supposed to be part of the performance.
Yeah. But they were saying
that everybody thought it was the performance.
Because they were saying the lines of the play the whole time. So they
so that's where Ira Levin was like, oh my God, that, because this was the performance that Ira Levin saw. And he was like, how did you draw all that drama out of that? That's not in the screen. Because the drama ain't there. So
if anybody happens to find any footage of that performance, please send it our way, because I would love to see that.
Yeah. It's something else. Because they actually have to interrupt the play with the offstage director saying, gentlemen, this is the theater, to remind them that they're, performing and not actually going at each other. So that's when you're really going in it for your craft, I would say. But that's all for now, I guess. We managed about an hour. And we thank you for watching. We'll be back not next week, but the weekend after that. We'll be talking about Westworld. We finally got. I finally got a copy of the DVD. John already has it, so we'll watch that on Friday, December 2nd. Or not watch it. We'll watch it before then, but we'll talk about it on Friday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Do your best to see if you can find it online, or check out your local library. A lot of libraries have it in stock. If you want to catch that, but we'll do our best to do that justice when we talk about it.
Yep.
And what are you doing for Thanksgiving, buddy?
I'm going to be with my mom's side of the family. I'll start by going up to Fort Mill where my brother lives, and then on Thanksgiving Day, we're going to travel to North Carolina, the Greensboro area where my Aunt Susan and Uncle Boyd live.
Okay. And I'll be here at the house, but the thing is, the weekend of Thanksgiving, the day after, not the day after, but the Saturday after, I'm doing the comic show appearance, or comic store appearance. And so the Friday afterwards will be me prepping all day for Saturday, basically. So with him being out of town and me needing to get ready for the store appearance, we're just going to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving holiday. And
yes,
stay safe out there. We know that the weather's been kind of rough, especially in the northeast part of the country with that snow up there in Buffalo and such. And, have a good week, everyone. If you enjoyed this video or you think others might, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get content from my channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you want to reach out to me on social media, Facebook is the best place to check out Lewis.BrightRaven. Yes, I am on Twitter technically. Lewis Brightraven too. However long that's going to last, as they say. Who knows if the platform will even be there. More of my artwork can be found on deviantart.com/BrightRaven. Watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven exclusively on YouTube. Questions, comments, suggestions of topics for discussion of future episodes, commission requests. Quoth the Raven LBR72@gmail.com is the place to reach out to me. If I'll get back to you in a day or two, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. And John is Gray, Grey, Figaro, Figaro @hotmail.com.
Yep.
If you want to talk to him about music, theater, that sort of thing, he'll do his best to make some time for you. I'm sure.
Sure.
And that's all for now, folks. So we'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.